Well, thank you for sharing that earlier. I mean, it's really great that you highlighted to us that in a bigger company, you need to be a little bit more conscious and careful. So you
Right.
actually do a bit more research, and in the startup, you're a little bit more fluid to the market dynamics and changes. Not that you don't plan; it's just that you're more flexible in terms of what is going on.
Right.
Maybe you don't have such an ultra long-term view, unlike in a much bigger business.
True. True.
So I think we discussed briefly, like because of your nature, right, of your role as a manager, but also because of your understanding of business, right? How important is it for designers to understand business so they can design better? Yeah.
Yeah, this is an amazing question. Um, well, to be frank, there's been a quote in the industry from some years, right? I'm sure a lot of us in this meeting have heard. Uh, Designers don't have a seat on the table, right? So designers, when you want to have a seat on the table, you need to know a lot of things. Just the pixel, just the pixels and the wireframes and UX process doesn't work sometimes. It can go beyond, and how do you connect your dots with other business units, right? So 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 in business, what you should exactly know, it's a very broad question, and I would like to give a couple of hints today. As much as if you can know as much as a business, how does it work, that would be great. But when it comes to very complex business units and very complex business structures, it is very difficult, right? But what I can do today is I can give you a couple of hints what you can actually go through, some key KPIs, some key metrics. If you can ask your stakeholders, it might help you. You know, so the first thing is what you should know is what is a business model canvas, and if there is a business model canvas in your company, can you actually read that and understand? And I'm sure it is very easy to read if you have it in front of you. If you don't have, that's fine, because the business model canvas is so easy. You can actually fill it up with a couple of your stakeholders. That's one of the important, I would say, tool to know. And second tool is business model ODC 3.14. Basically, it's a business model innovation. And what is important there is value proposition, value architecture, and profit equation. So these are three things you would like to know. I know I'm talking like a businessman now, talking like an MBA grad, but yeah, as soon as you Google these terms and you find those frameworks, it's going to be really easy, I'm telling you. And then a couple of other things, like if you can know what is your customer's willingness to pay, is also a very important thing to understand. That can give you a lot of insights while you're designing it. And one important thing is if you can actually learn your or read your company's annual reports, okay, that would give a whole lot of insights. That's more than enough. um, but if I have to go with some more points, could be corporate strategy, which is again very important tools. Sometimes every company doesn't have a corporate strategy; they have business strategy. So if you know business strategy, corporate strategy, that's great. If you know business case studies, if you can go to HBR, Harvard Business Review, you can actually buy some business case studies, and it's going to help a lot. And you will understand what is the competitive advantage of various companies, like why Starbucks is successful and what is their competitive advantage, how did they win, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of other strategies available in HBR. Even SPH strategies also available there.
Yeah. Could you perhaps give us an example that you have used previously? Because you mentioned quite a few
Right.
frameworks that, as designers, we are encouraged not to master but to understand a little bit better and to use as part of our work as a designer or as a design leader, right? So,
Right.
how have you personally applied any one of these things that you mentioned?
Sure. So I would like to say that a couple of months back, we have been talking to one of the companies. I cannot name the company, but we were supposed to present some business innovation or business ideas where we can possibly collaborate together and start giving our publications to them. But the idea is they don't wanted a physical paper. They don't wanted a digital paper. Okay, what kind of solutions can you come up with? So this was for our business stakeholders. This was a very difficult situation to answer, right? Sometimes because you don't have any product like this, and how can we give them a solution now? So when we go with them as designers, when we tag along with our business stakeholders and we go into the meetings, we kind of understand what is the main reason why they would like to have a unique product like this. So after asking a lot of questions, we came to a conclusion that business model canvas would be one of the best tools to use, and we have used it. And after using business model canvas, we invented two things: what it would be the business model for the entire product, okay, and how we're going to make money, and what will be the key channels, and who will be the key competition, and what the product would look like eventually. So business model canvases sometimes we use quite often, I would say.
So it sounds like you use a tool called Business Model Canvas to help clarify some of the things that were in the heads of your stakeholders. And with that clarity, your design team could actually pursue that idea with more confidence. Am I hearing?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about strategy. We're talking about business strategy versus corporate strategy. What, in your definition, how are they different?
Yeah, sure. So before going, can you come up with a question again? I'm sorry, there was a
Oh,
problem with my
yeah.
mic and
No,
speak.
so I think you mentioned earlier something about business strategy and corporate strategy being
Right.
quite different. Let's start with like what's the difference, right? You said some companies have corporate strategy but don't have business strategy. I can't remember exactly, or was it vice versa?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So some companies are very complex in nature because they have various products under their umbrella, right? And like a complicated company like you know SPH, or even Google. Okay, they have a lot of businesses, right? And every business has their own business strategy to succeed, right? And all these business strategies of different business units have to merge to a corporate strategy. It should align with the corporate strategy, and and it should align with it. Okay, so for example, my corporate strategy is for, I'm just hypothetically saying that, company XYZ wants to make $1 billion in next 3 years. That's my corporate strategy. And there are a couple of more. I'm just giving an example. And other business unions could actually contribute to reach that 1 billion goal, right? Uh, all the business units cannot have a different business strategies and it doesn't align with corporate strategy. It doesn't make sense, right? To make sure the entire company as a group succeeds. So all the business units should work together as individual units and achieve that 1 billion goal.
Hmm. So in this case, where most of our audience members over here are product managers or UX designers, I was
Right.
just wondering what kind of role should we play, right, in helping achieve the strategic goals of the company? Yeah.
Okay. Um, as so the reason why I've been talking about business model canvas or willingness to pay or all these business models, which I just spoke a couple of minutes back, I'm not asking everyone to know what is it exactly and how does it work. Sometimes it gets a little complex, but as soon as you scan through it, you know what is there in the framework and what is the value we have to bring onto the table. For example, just coming back to ABC example or XYZ example, just now I gave $1 billion, right? And that's an entire high level corporate strategy, and every business unit has some goals to achieve. Some business unit might say that, hey, I can actually target for $250 million in sales. Let me try that at least. So the product designers and product managers can actually work together to make the feature roadmap or product roadmap, which actually can generate a lot of revenue, a lot of conversion to the business, and which actually aligns to your corporate strategy or business strategy, right? So that's how you as a designer and a product manager can help to the entire group and the entire company. I know as a designer, a lot of times we talk about experience, we talk about usability issues, accessibility issues. Those things will remain. I think we should definitely focus on that. We should not deviate from there. But our core product roadmap should also align with the entire strategy.
Hmm. So what I hear is corporate strategy being sort of like this big umbrella with business strategy for each of the business units,
Right.
and having the appropriate product strategy that supports the business strategy, and of course being the designer or being the product manager, our goal is to help either to optimize the experience so that we hit certain numbers to meet the goal of
Right.
the company. Okay, so yeah, I think that is very clear to me, and I think it's also good that you're speaking about business because one of the things I often hear from our guest instructors from the school that we run is that designers could definitely learn a little bit about talking about the business impact of their work, right? Would you
Right.
agree? Like how do you train your juniors to talk about business impact, or do you even encourage them to talk about business impact? Yeah.
Yes, of course. I think one of the important things, a lot of times, what we forget as a designers, including me, when I was a junior designer, I used to talk about experience, how can we give value to the user and whatnot, which is a great thing. But you cannot, on the same side, you cannot forget what is business value, right? And that's how you get paid as a salary, as bonuses and whatnot, right? And and how can you make sure that the users experience doesn't hamper, even the business experience doesn't hamper? And there's a very sweet spot actually, you can come there through this. And to do so, there are some KPIs we should know, right? As a designer, um, like if my goal is to achieve $1 billion after end of this year, let's assume for a second, and to reach there, what kind of key metrics is important for my product manager actually? And you don't have to make a KPI. It just, your product managers and business owners are already making a KPI. It just, you make sure you go and talk to them. What is the current KPI? What is the how the KPI is affecting after my design got released? Is there any effect or not?
Hmm.
So I hope I answered the question.
You did. And I think what you simply did was to say, maybe I don't know everything as a designer about the KPI, but then I'm going to tell you what I know about the KPI and how my work affects the KPI from my perspective, right? So,
So
yeah.
right, there are thousands of KPIs, and as a designer, I'm sure you don't want to get into all those details and know what is it exactly. But what is your current KPI of the product on a business? At least if you know those 4 5 numbers and how does it work, what kind of impact it gives, that's more than enough. And to teach that, product managers, business unit owners can actually help you.
Hmm. So we have a question from the audience, and the audience member mentioned, what are your views on founded by a designer or being design centered or being a design first company, to what now seems to be a bit unpopular and has evolved to be a more business driven company? Because perhaps startups are all about passion. You've worked in startups yourself, right? And
Right.
sometimes they start with that passion and the design, like, oh, it's users first. But as the startup kind of grows up, they need to be a little bit more business driven. What was your experience going through that? And do you have any thoughts or comments?
Okay. So I was working for a company called Exploride back in India. It was a very futuristic product, we were actually making a heads-up display for cars, and it was sold in the US and other parts of the Western world. So when we started talking with our investors, uh, My founder was not there in India. He flew to US for other meetings and he stayed there for 6 months. And now I was a single point of contact with investors and I kind of learned a lot from them. Because whenever I used to go to investors, whenever I used to talk about the design strategy and how we're going to save lives and how we're going to help the user to drive better and things like that, those are secondary questions. It is important, definitely, but how can I get my money back? What is the return out of it, right? So for investors, that's one of the important things, and unfortunately, that's going to remain like that. And luckily, there are a lot of investment companies which focus on design, the design-led investment companies where they invest in design as well. I'll give you a classic example. So Tinder's competitive advantage is not matchmaking. Tinder's competitive advantage is design. The swipe left and right, that is a competitive advantage. That is design. Airbnb's competitive advantage initially was design. Even till now, it is design, right? You can be actually both at the same point of time. Like you can be a design-led company plus a business-led company as well. And that's what I was talking about, to come at a sweet spot where you solve business problems and user problems together.
Yeah, and how do you do that without losing your soul?
Yeah, I mean, it okay. So when I work on very crucial products or features, when I hear from product managers and owners that we have to cut down a lot of features because of business need, because of technical needs, all that. I don't have to get emotional on that, because it's at the end of the day, it's business, right? But the kind of questions what I ask them is important. Like, if not today, when next? Is it going to release in second release, or is it in third release or fourth release, right? When the day is going to come, right? And what are we tracking actually? What are the numbers we're tracking? And uh, yeah, I mean, just ask right questions and just keep following up on the designs. For example, if I release my design today and keep tracking the numbers, if the numbers are going high, that's great. And then go and push your stakeholders, tell that, hey, the numbers are going high, which means there is a lot of demand of this product, of this feature. Let me improve it now. Yeah.
I like your approach of not taking it too personally, and the fact that you have this sense of optimism whereby, hey, actually, if everyone's doing well, it's also good for the design team, right? Because that means more resources being channeled to the design team.
Right.
Yeah, so I really like that approach. So you mentioned something about design operations. That's a big part of what you do currently at your work. So can you maybe share a little bit what is your definition of design operation, and how do you know when you have done it well? Yeah.
Sure. So here I would like to be really frank, and then see, design operations is not very prevalent in the Asian market. I mean, I'm not saying there's none of the companies which are using design operations. There are a lot of amazing companies which are using design operations. It just design operations has to be used at a right time and for the right problem. And when your team grows from more than 10 to 15 designers, I think personally, I feel if your team is more than 15 designers, then you should kick in your design operations team, and you start hiring design operations people who can actually solve things. The other way is you can actually hire design operations from the beginning if you have enough budgets, if you have enough money to spend and grow the team from the beginning. But NNG has an amazing definition, amazing diagram of design operations where they do amazing work. Like for me, I would not say I touch all the aspects of design operations, but let me give you a little brief background about how NNG does. NNG has three different parts, like how we work together, how we get the work done, and how to create work impact. And under these three things, there are a lot of different functions and a lot of different uh, components which can be used. uh, like for example, design system is one of the examples. Creating principles, defining metrics, training, softwares, acquisition of new tools, icons, illustrations, estimation, asset management, and like career growth, onboarding, hiring. It can go long. So what I personally, as a design manager at SPH, the operations part, what I take care of is definitely hiring. And we are hiring for a couple of more roles in future. Like we're hiring for researcher, designer, and a lead designer with some sort of an experience in management as well. So yeah, I mean, hiring is one of the important roles what I take care of in SPH, and I've been hiring like since 2 years now in SPH, and I have to make sure what is a growth path, and I cannot just hire them and keep them and ask them to work. I have to create a roadmap of their growth before even they join, right? And what is their 60-day plan? What is their 90-day plan as soon as they come and join the company? These are a few areas what I work on, and design system is something we are working on. As you know, our products are very complex, and we are doing little experiments on design system for various products, and it's going pretty well. So on a nutshell, I would say in design system we're doing hiring, onboarding properly, and we are creating a roadmap of growth for designers, and we are doing design systems.
Yeah. So it sounds like based on what you just described, design operations involve thinking about how the people, the assets, the system, or you could call the process, how it can actually scale well as the team is growing or as the business is growing. And I think that's wonderful. And we actually have a question from the audience again.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think one of my personal what is design operations according to me, what I personally feel is, if you can free up your designers time, if you can free up a researchers time, or not doing the admin work, like uh, you know finding icons, signing up for some softwares, going into a 5 hours long meeting, uh, getting the feedback from stakeholders, and if you can make their workflow process really simple for researchers and designers, that's the best thing. That's what design operations is all about.
Hmm. I like what you just explained, and I do believe it answered a question we have in the audience where someone was asking about whether design is a function versus like design as a team and all that. So I'm gonna take it that we answered that question, and if needed, please let us know if you need clarity on that. So you mentioned in our brief chat that there were three things to consider to be effective at design ops. I'm not sure if we actually covered that. Was there something that you wanted to mention, that the three things you consider to be effective at design ops?
Uh, it all depends upon the context and the company and the size and the culture and how UX mature the company is, right? But for me, if I have to pick three things, so I would pick first is design systems, because I want designers to work on problem solving skills, then pushing the pixels and then recreating the same designs every now and then. Second is I want to make the hiring, onboarding, and growth path of the designers really smooth, because that's your core pillar, right? And third is design advocacy. How can this design operations team can create a space where the design team can actually share the success stories to the entire head of departments and the entire company? These are three things I would say is very important.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, system, people, and advocacy. That's super important. What out of these three things, what do you think people pay the least attention to when it comes to digital transformation?
That's going to be a risky question to answer, to be frank.
Yeah, I'm sure it varies for each company, but then like or what do you feel like people could do better? Like yeah, like based on your own experience executing on all these three fronts.
I
Yeah.
think if the hiring process has been smoothened, that'd be great. See, the problem is at this point in time when we hire designers, we want the best, right? We want designers to know everything. We want them to know user research. We want them to be a storyteller. We want to have some sort of a business experience as well to share some KPIs and to be part of it, right? And that is a big challenge here, right? You cannot get a generalist who can do everything with 2 years of experience or 1 year of experience. I do a lot of uh, design when designers come to me, and then when they ask these questions, I need to go for this interview. What should I do? And they've been asking me these questions. So what I've learned from them is it's very difficult to crack interviews these days. But one core thing, what is important is you need to hire people who have the right attitude, who are coachable, who have the intention to spend extra time and effort to learn something new and put it in the company's design and value. So that's what I feel, and that is missing. People are more transactional these days. They want designers to know everything with 1 year or 2 years experience.
Which is really tough because we are in a market where there's actually not enough supply of good talent, which is a problem we are solving as a school as well, where we try and train people up as much as possible. So that responsibility doesn't fall on completely fall on the manager who is going to hire the person. So
I want to add one thing here. Sorry,
sure, go ahead.
I was talking to one of the recruiter friend in the Europe, and what he said is, I think he was hiring for some big top 3 companies in Europe. He said uh, um, he said the demand is really high, okay, really high at this point of time, okay, but the supply is like high as well, but the gap is not filling. The positions are empty, and people are not hiring, and that's a very sad part to be in.
Did he actually mention why it's not kind of like matching together, even though there seems to be a lot of talent around?
So this is one of the reasons, as companies want them to do a lot of things, mostly a startup or a mid-level companies, they want them to do a lot of things. And mostly in the interviews, they kind of assess the designers on all kind of skill sets, and which is hard. You cannot get all the skill sets in just one person. It's very difficult. And we have to create a balance in the team, right? There are some extroverts, there are some introverts, there are some thinkers, there are some doers, there are some researchers who can be a good designer as well. So if it is a mix of good, like-minded people of various interests, it would be a solid team. But if you have 10 different designers with all same thinking, they all are good at thinking, but no one is good at visual design, then the company is or the product is going to nowhere, right? So that balance is very important.
I really like the fact that you mentioned about diversity, which is also something we believe a lot. And when we train our students, they all come from very diverse backgrounds, and we get them to work together on real projects. And that also imitates what it's like in real life, where hiring managers actually hire very diverse people who are different. Um, we do have a question from the audience who is asking you, what's your typical week like? Because you mentioned earlier on your typical day, which sounds like you have a lot of meetings to attend. So what's your typical week like?
Sure. Let me structure it first. Okay. So first thing, let me try to share as much details as possible. So first thing, what I do is I have at least 5 to 6 one-on-one sessions with my designers. And in these one-on-one sessions, I discuss all about their personal and the professional life and their career growth path as well. And second is I have rare occasions of one-on-ones with my product managers as well, to just understand what's happening in their product. Is there something new which is coming in? I need to help you with any resource. That's second. And third is um, how is your product roadmap going on? Why it is delayed? If it is delayed, how can I help you? And the fourth part is there's a lot of meetings going on, right? So we have more than 12 products, and at any given point at the time, there's 30 to 35 different projects running. So I might have to jump into multiple important meetings at the same point of time. So half an hour I will attend this meeting, half an hour I will attend another meeting. Yeah, and I also talk to researchers. We have a very small research team. We have one lead researcher and we have one researcher, and I do catch up with them and to understand how can I help them and how can we grow our research process. And beside that, I also meet quite often with my stakeholders from various departments just to make sure everything is going smooth, and I hope they don't have any complaints with the design team or product team. And my as a I have this title of design manager, but I still like to be hands-on. So I have my own product. When I say own product, it's SPH product for sure. It's one of the most strategic projects I'm working on. So whenever I get some time, I jump onto Figma and try to design something and present it to my CPO and other product managers and get a buy-in from there and move on. And a lot of times I also help my designers to create buy-in decks. What is a buy-in deck? Buy-in deck is basically when you design something, you have designed with a lot of passion, a lot of insights, but it is in Figma, right? And the deck is not that great. Okay. So how do you structure your deck? So I help designers there as well. So this is what I do on a weekly basis. And I'm sure I miss a lot of things.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a pretty productive kind of like week.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, are there any like distinctions or anything special? For example, what's it like working with the newsroom or journalists, for example, which I'm sure they are also stakeholders and influencers of your product. Do you sense anything different from working with journalists? Yeah.
Apparently, they have they have I mean they have a very good eye for design actually, you know and their content is really good, because they're writers eventually, right? They write stories, they write articles, they write news journalism, right? And we kind of get a lot of help from them when we create our UX writing, or when we are stuck at copywriting. Sometimes they are not copywriters though, but we get a lot of help from them. So most of the times they are one of our allies actually, who actually helps us to do a lot of binds. For example, just a year back when we were doing redesign for Straight Times, and our focus was on content. How can we make sure the content comes out really well through design, right? And content team, journalists and designers have worked together and achieved it really well, I would like to say.
Hmm. And when it comes to designing products that are editorial in nature, is there anything we need to pay special attention to as designers, right? Especially products that are very content heavy. Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you come back to the question? There was some lag in the video.
Oh, no worries. So I wanted to ask you, when it comes to designing for products that are more editorial in nature or very content heavy in nature, is there anything we need to pay special attention to as designers? Yeah.
Yes, being a content company, the focus should be on content, right? That's what that's our product, right? And while we are designing, we have to make sure that the product, the content is coming out well, and people are able to read as much as content as they want, right? So for example, we cannot create a TikTok kind of a design where there's only one story in the homepage, right? We want to give an immersive experience for user. They can see a lot of content on a single page. When I say a lot, I mean definitely there's a sweet spot here. There cannot be 50 articles in one page. So yeah, that kind of a strategy we have to work with editorial team.
Right. So it sounds like there needs to be sort of like a balance between the complexity or of the content as well as how it appears, right? Because you want people to immediately be able to glance through everything, but not to the extent whereby it overwhelms them as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that sounds fair. Earlier, you mentioned something about presenting better as designers, and you're helping a lot of your designers present their work better to stakeholders. And someone asked a similar question. So how can designers, especially junior designers, improve the way they present their work in day-to-day meetings?
Okay. So there are multiple school of thoughts here. My school of thought is be structured and create a deck. Okay, I love decks. Okay, and that's and it's not like I've learned this 10 years back. I've learned it recently, a couple of years back, 3 years back to be precise. And the reason why decks is because you don't know who's your stakeholder. Sometimes this deck can go to the CEO, sometimes this deck can go to the designer, product manager, marketing department, strategy department. So think like an audience, right? You have like your users are entire company, right? How do you create a deck which can be understood for a customer service executive till the CEO? So that's first. Keep that in mind and then design a deck. So make sure you have basic things like a little context about the project. Most of the times, earlier I used to not include the context why I have designed this. So first is context is important, and what is the problem in the context, and what were the ways you solved that problem through design. That is important, and also give some options. Hey, this is the proposed design, but I've actually worked on these designs as well. Then the reason why these designs are not good, because it's not scalable, it's not tech friendly, or whatever the reasons you want to mention. And then when you show a proposed design, also write reasons why it is a proposed design, because it is more scalable, because it is mobile friendly, and whatever the reasons are. And sometimes we think that a design would talk itself, and by looking at the design, people would like it. But no, when you see the design, and you need to have some points where I can just skim through and understand what would work for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as a process, and essentially.
Sorry, probably last. I'm sorry.
Problem.
This last thing probably I want to add is maybe you can add some numbers, metrics. I love to add some numbers and metrics. For example, this kind of a design pattern is also used by New York Times. Okay, and what was their growth? Okay, why they are doing it like this? Why I have chosen this design model sometimes? Okay, and also teach them the principles. My design principle for this product is, flexibility, accessibility, color friendliness, whatever. Okay, and then when you present those 4 or 5 principles, and then you show your design, then it makes sense.
Well, it sounds like, from what I gather as I hear you say, it's about having a clear structure with the right context,
Right.
but as well as presenting the necessary evidence to back whatever you're proposing, right? If that means showing a rationale, you show the rationale. But if that means plucking an example from your competitor and saying, hey, your competitor also does this and this is their growth, you use that to persuade your stakeholders.
Exactly.
Yeah, that sounds like a very effective strategy. Have you actually met any difficult stakeholders, and how do you then sort of like work with them or work through them in this case?
Well, a lot of times I meet this with a lot of difficult stakeholders, and I feel most of my learning has been uh, really nice from last couple of years. It's because of these stakeholders, uh, yeah. So whenever I get stuck in this kind of situation, what I do is I kind of either agree to their points, and I buy some time from them, that hey, let me actually go back and think about it. Okay, because I don't want to jump my solutions immediately, and I want to think first, because this guy is talking really in detail, and I cannot just give him random ideas which are not thought well. Okay, as the designers, we all love to, you know come up with ideas on spot. We share ideas on spot, but and that's not wrong, if you're really confident, if you are confident on it, okay. But I like to buy some time on that, and I sometimes I also do one-on-one meetings with them to go back and understand deeply what was the problem. Because sometimes, when in a big setup of meeting where there are like 25, 30 people in a meeting room, you don't want to share what is the exact problem, and you want to poke them, right? What went wrong. So this discussion might get heat up, and that's what my strategy is. I leave the meeting, I say thank you, let me buy some more time, and then I set up one-on-one, I understand the problem, and then try to solve and then come up with solutions in the next meeting. That's what I do.
Yeah, and that's great because I think that's an important part of working with business as well,
Yeah.
and being effective, as you said in the table, right, where all your stakeholders are all business owners. Um, and
And most importantly, building relationships is one of the key things here. Um, as soon as you build relationships, things will get sorted, and these things will be easily solved in a one-on-one discussion with your stakeholders.
That's great. Well, we're almost at the end of our interview, and I think just wanted to ask you, what's your sense of the talent, right, over here in Singapore versus back in India? And I know things might have changed because you haven't been in India for 5 years. But what's your sense between the two countries? Is there anything we can learn from each other? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it's been 5 years. I don't know what's happening in India at this point in time because I haven't hired anyone in India because we don't have a team in India. But back then, Indian designers are pretty strong at their craft. Okay, they focus a lot on their craft. No storytelling. I mean, I'm not saying all designers are like that. It's just most of the designers, they love to work on their craft and make sure the portfolio is amazing. And like 5 years back, even like when I was back in India, looking at your design, people hire you, right? You need to have a really good portfolio, at least for the junior designers I'm talking about. But what I see currently, what the trend is in Singapore is how is your design thinking has evolved, okay, from your design one to design X, right? If you're going to a school, a nice design school, okay, like Curious Core is amazing, and I've interviewed some candidates from there. So I feel the thinking part is really really strong here, and that's what is important. That's what the core is of design, right? Once the thing, if you have the thinking, and how do you understand a problem, and how do you follow a process, and how do you come to a conclusion and a solution, that is what is important. That is the primary. Rest are secondary, because craft can be polished later. And what I was as a designer in terms of visual 10 years back was different, and now I'm different, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So I think this leads to a follow-up question from one
Yeah.
of the audience members. If you have to bring any designer in your team, what are the skill sets you will be looking for? Yeah.
Well, it depends upon designer, right? Let's assume I'm talking to a product designer. For me, as I said, most important thing is how is your product thinking, right? How do you think, and how do you approach to a problem? How do you approach to a solution? Even if you're not good at visuals, that's fine. If you're not polished enough, that's fine. These are things you can learn on job, and there are people around and around you who can actually help you to grow, right? This is first, and second is how do you how is your storytelling style, right? And how do you tell your story? How do you present your work? That is most important thing, because in SPH most of the designers are hands-on, and including me, and they are um, they're very independent when it comes to a product. They handle, most of the time, sometimes like we handle two three products, one designer, right? And how do they handle stakeholders? That is very important. So three things to summarize. First is how is your product and design thinking. And how was your storytelling for your product or for your design? How were you going to present it? Third is, how would you handle a stakeholder?
Yeah, that's really excellent. And for the roles that you specifically say that are currently open in your company, this will also these three things are things people should bear in mind when they are submitting an application to your team.
Right.
Am I correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the lead designer, it will be little, the dynamics are different, and then requirements will change, and it will add a lot of points.
Yeah. So I understand you are also a mentor in several organizations like Design Labs, Rookie Up, and ADP List, which is a pretty popular platform.
Right.
What are some of the common, mistakes that you spot while you're helping out or when you're mentoring on some of these platforms?
Yeah. So all these three platforms serve different purposes, right? Like the design labs, they teach design and they make generalist designers. Okay, and they are pretty good in the US, and they have students globally, including Singapore as well. And there's one new student who has submitted their work today. So yeah, and Rookie Up is again totally US and Asia focused, and ADP is global again. We all know about it. It's an amazing platform. So if I talk about these design schools where I mentor designers, I feel most of the designers want to learn design, but what they don't specifically tell is what is their vision, what do they want to achieve out of it. Okay, because that would actually define where they would like to focus and how they would like to focus, right? I mean, if you, I understand being a journalist is great because you can do everything. You can trial and error a lot of things, you can do a lot of things, but you need to have focus from day one. You need to have a vision for yourself, right? That is missing most of the times, I feel. uh, Getting a job and getting into design is easy. If not today, we'll get it tomorrow for sure. But making a vision in the beginning is important, because that will take you really long. That will take you, that will, you will traverse really long with that vision.
Hmm. Well, I think that's excellent advice. I mean, it's almost like beginning with sort of like how you want to grow and having that growth mindset of and continuously developing it, whether it's investing in yourself through courses or whether it's kind of like self-studying or reading books or networking with people. I think those things do matter a lot. I was just wondering, since we're nearly at the end of the conversation, I was wondering if you have any parting advice for the people over here who are practicing designers or who are aspiring designers, right? Do you have any general advice for them or
Yeah.
words?
Well, I can give a couple of them. The first thing is, I've seen in design portfolios, especially for the designers who are new to the industry or who have just 1 year of experience or very little experience. Um, they in their portfolio, they kind of focus too much on the process. Well, process is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but what, like when they design the entire process, when they show the entire process, what they miss is the hypothesis, the problem, and solutions. And what they also miss is how did they arrive? What was the like when you come with the design solution, you don't pick up the first design solution. You have like 4 or 5 designs which are scrapped in the archive folder, and then you came with a solution. So what was there in the archive? Why did you archive it? That is very important. And if you can actually show that, that is very important, because I want sometimes people, who showcases their efforts. That's most important.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, it's not just about the process, but it's also about the decisions that have been made, and all about this. Do you have any examples of good portfolios that you might want to point people to, or good resources where people can then sort of like reference in order to build a good portfolio?
If I'm not wrong, there's a website called Best Folios.
Hmm.
That is a good place to go and learn and seek some. I mean, you can see a lot of resumes, a lot of portfolios of designers across the globe, and then you learn a lot from there.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Just wanted to give an example. The reason why I said this is because focus on problem and solution also, and then archives also. The reason is because in real life, you don't get to work on this full big process sometimes. There is a problem given to you, you have to solve it in a day or two. Like, like then you cannot go with the entire process. You might go with the user flows, quick wireframes, and then hi-fi prototypes and designs, right? And then there's no research, there's no prototype, there's no testing sometimes. So just make sure this problem, your hypothesis is important, and your solution, and what did you delete it in or you put in the archive. That's very important.
I think that's excellent. And with that, I think this has been a really wonderful interview where we covered a lot of ground. First, starting by talking about the importance of business in design, moving on to design operations, and then talking about the hiring process and how things are, what do you look out for specifically, and some of the common mistakes that people make when preparing their portfolios, case studies. So really glad to have Sunit with us tonight. And if you like this type of content, please share and tell your friends about it. And you're welcome back to join us again next month with another guest who is working in UX design. So Sunit, thank you for your time with us tonight. Really glad to have you.
I'm sorry, guys, in case if I missed some questions from some of the designers. Feel free to drop me a line on LinkedIn or on an email. I should be able to answer that maybe in a day or two. Thank you again. It was a wonderful audience. Thanks for asking amazing questions.
Awesome.
Have an amazing evening, morning, whatever it is, time. Bye-bye.
Thank you to our international audience.